Live, right? So let's wait for the live stuff. Live. So welcome everybody. So first of
Thank you.
all, welcome Ao, welcome Karen. My name is Edgard. Welcome everyone that's watching and exercise this conversation. I'm pretty excited about this subject. It's mediation on land. Uh, is a pretty much like is a new topic. So I've been working in some kind of connection with this topic. But the idea that we can share different perspectives, which is the reason of this connection, would be amazing. So we were invited to have this conversation. It's basically this panel or this conversation is going to be divided in four moments. We can respect or not. We're going to try to. So first of all, it's going to be an introduction. So each one of us is going to introduce ourselves, what we've been doing, stuff. So we're going to be about 10 minutes. The second one, we're going to have 20 minutes to share a little bit how we are related with this topic. So how you see this challenge, what's going on, da, 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 20 minutes. So about our work itself, but the topic itself is going to talk about this subject. And then we have 20 more minutes in the third round. It's about bringing solutions. We can invent solutions. We can share about what we've been doing by that, our new perspectives, or other projects that you know about that. Share a little bit more to enrich the audience. And then finally, you have 10 minutes to closing. But basically, you're going to be talking about, okay, what could be the next steps? What are going to be my next step? So what are possibilities of engagement for ourselves and for others? So 4 moments. And you're going to see, like, you can be very excited in one topic. You're going to take 30 minutes. It's more than okay. But let's see how it goes. We're going to start now from the introduction. Usually we say ladies first. You're going to go ladies first, or you prefer me to start it? Okay. Thank you, ladies. So my name is Edgard Gouveia Jr. I'm from Brazil. I'm an architect and urban designer. Sorry about my English and my accent. I hope you can all follow it. And the last 25 years, since from college, I've been working using the power of play, the power of the games and adventures and journey to restore, regenerate neighborhoods, or to engage people. We used to say that we all have our ordinary version and our extraordinary version. And when we are playing, ordinary is not bad, it's just like usual, what you play every day, you don't do any effort. But sometimes in our lives, we have an extraordinary version. Like the best of yourself brings come, and suddenly you are on top of the stage, and people say, "Who are you? What are you doing?" Right? Or you are doing some kind of work, or something that even yourself, you look at yourself and no, it's not me. What's going on? So that situation that we all have facing at some point in our lives, we call extraordinary version. And we believe in this time that we are living now, we need to bring more and more our extraordinary version. And we learn from college that when we are playing our extraordinary version, individually and collectively, then truly miracles happen. We do crazy, amazing things like that. And we realize that when we create a context of play, of joy, of connection, then naturally the best version of ourselves is there. When we are dancing like crazy in a party, your best version is there. If we could use that energy, the jump in the stage to make change, then change would happen. So basically, I've been dedicating my life to design journeys, games, ignitions, like how to ignite people to make change, and using that to restore their lands, restore their relationships. So really using hands-on actions to build a garden or a playground in 2 days with no money. So those epic journeys is what I'm really excited to do all the time in moving crowds and crowds of people. We do it like locally, regionally, and sometimes the whole nation. When we have a big disaster, we call the whole nation a big game to help that the region to make change. So I do those kind of stuff, and that's why many people use or call us to use the power of game for mediating process among different communities, different companies. So how can we use that to bring people together? When we are playing together, the game, the play itself is the mediation tool. Okay. That's me. I forgot to take it, and then I bring it back.
I guess I
Thanks,
can go
Kelly.
next. So I am Karen. I am living in São Paulo, and most of my life I've lived here. And I also come from this background of architecture and urbanism. And I'm also very deeply connected to this topic of mediation and especially games. So hearing Edgar speaking, I was like, yes, uh, that's what I feel called to do. Um, and I had this really hard moment in college because I always felt that there was this gap between what was being discussed about the city in college, and kind of the vision that we had and the conversations that I would have outside. Um, and then I stopped college for a bit and I went to this program called the Initiative Program. Um, and there I came in contact with this topic of facilitation. And basically, we played a lot of games, and you kind of stepped into different roles than what you would usually do in a dialogue or a conversation. And it can be like very simple rituals, like this thing of grabbing the stone that kind of makes you shift to a different place. And then I came back to Brazil and I started working at the City Needs You Institute, which is a nonprofit that works from the idea of collaborative urbanism and co creation of spaces. Because in the end, I feel like cities are this collective construction and they are also this narrative that we tell ourselves. So it's also this narrative that we can play with. And then I also worked with Renato to develop the co-housing game, which is a card game for people to discuss arrangements of living and conflicts and how they want to live together in a shared house. And yeah, I think that that's it for my introduction.
Thank you, Kelly.
Then here I am. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for introducing yourself. As I said before we got before we got live, that I have kind of a space bit with the topic. But now that I hear your introductions, I'm already seeing multiple connections. So I'm French citizen, first generation from North African family, and I first studied theater, which is the essence, one of the oldest way of playing. I studied the direction, so kind of finding the essence of people playing together, acting together, reacting reality together in order to reflect. So just that social reflection for me was what interested me in theater. And after I finished my studies, I recognized that the ritual of it interested me more than creating it. So then I studied anthropology to look at the creative rituals and how oppressed communities can liberate themselves through creative practices. So when I speak of oppressed communities and creative practices, I can give a very hands-on example, which is French rap, how people from countries that have been colonized by the French Empire found space within the French society to express themselves. How can we find the little space that we have in order to liberate ourselves? So you can see through rap that you have rappers from Algeria, from Tunisia, from Senegal that can finally express the pain and through that expression of pain resonate with others. So this is community building, this is liberation at a communal level, not individual level. And now that we talk specifically about the city, I'm very interested in human geography. So I've been digging this topic for quite some time now. The idea that everything is a reflection of us and every reflection reflects back at us. So if we look at the city as a social phenomenon, this is the reflection of the community. How do we live together? How do we engage together? So those topics already are speaking of belongingness, of the notion of home, which are very embedded in my understanding of anthropology. And now, as you can see under my name, I'm an independent researcher. I think the notion of independence is very key when we're doing social science. So there is this first emancipation that comes from university, just not only learning what's given, but kind of slowly building some form of critical thinking. Like Karen, you mentioned what you studied, and at some point you saw that dichotomy, that space between what are we talking about and what do we want to talk about. So this is kind of the emancipation of the student who is like, oh, let me take space. And once I took this space, I recognized within the work that I do as a researcher that the independence is needed. So never represented a project, but always represented the idea of social science coming in, discussing. But for me, that independence is very key in order to find that critical thinking and to find that form of emancipation. And I guess that's my introduction. So thank you for listening.
You're welcome. Oh, uh, I think like I'm excited already with I'm excited already with conversation, the upcoming conversation, and I wonder if you can like feel like really free, the three of us, because for sure we have questions from each other, right? So I'm not gonna be. So I propose not to be myself just interviewing you girls, but maybe like raising our live questions inside us. For example, I have one question that I can and to send for each one that we have, or both of us, right, or the three of us. But one of the first questions that came when I was listening to you, Karen, and I have many to you as well. Oh, in a while. But Karen, I was wondering, I see like quite interesting inventing a game to help people. So many people are thinking about co-housing, and I wonder what led you to talking about this framework. So now we are in the 20 minutes. We're going to talk about, okay, how is our work, what we learn from that, how do you see this topic, right, about mediation, right? So I wonder, Karen, of course, the card game or a game for co-housing is amazing mediation process for people to learn how to get better at that. I wonder what are your main questions or main answers or main feedbacks from the game? How the game itself is helping people in mediation of going co-housing or staying co-housing? Sorry.
No, don't worry. It's a great question, and like I feel that the game is really developing as we play it. So it has this very simple structure that I feel that most games have to have a very simple structure, so they allow actually people to um, step into them and create something new. So it is basically different cards that have the topics, which can be material or immaterial, that can affect this living together. And then there is a guide for the mediator. So the game already assumes that there is some sort of impartial person that is kind of conducting the dynamics and um, kind of pushing a bit more the people if they are avoiding a topic, or asking them to step back if they get into an argument. And actually, one of the most interesting things that happened was when I played with people that weren't actually um, already living together. So they kind of started role playing what kind of arguments they would have, and role playing even conflicts that didn't exist. So that kind of really brought this sort of lightness to discussing these topics. But it was really interesting that, like, I've also played with a family, and then this kind of dynamics of mother and children, and this division of labor, for example, was really present. And the game was made to play in one of Fika's houses. So they have a project that is happening, that different families would live in the same place. I don't actually know the name of that in English. Cortiço, do you know it, Kat?
Which is, I don't know in English. No, no. I'm gonna try to remember. I'm gonna
But
try to
it's,
remember something.
yeah, it's this sort of house that different families live in. And
And
so it was
many
intended,
families in just one house.
like Renato invited me to do that, because they were in this debate of, we don't want to create a set of rules from our experience to how they have to use their space. So we want this tool that can allow them to create this set of rules that works for them. And I was really interested in what AO was saying about independence, because that was also like a big question behind it, of this independence for you to decide and you to take the consequences of it. And some rules actually help us, and some rules get in our way. But when we stand by the rules that we created, they are actually very liberating. So I'll put that question back.
This echoes a lot the notion. There are two notions here that echoes. That the first one is the idea of playing, role playing. If you look at young animals, humans or non-humans, there is this play fight. You know, like you can imagine bear cubs kind of pretending to fight, and that indirectness. You know, like that imagined conflict. Let's imagine that we are in conflict. The fact that it's indirect implies that the emotions are not there of the direct conflict, and then we can come to some form of resolution. So the indirectness, the indirect communication, I think is very key when we talk about conflict, not to get in the heat of it, but just to have that almost displacement. So that is already very key. And to echo back to theater, you know, like even if whatever you imagine or whatever story you tell has, as fictional as it can be, its origins is always real. That is emotion, or like imagination is real, right? So if you have like a game and then people are kind of like imagining conflict, or let's imagine we live together, anything that we would imagine, everything that we would state would then be realized. So that's the true nature of play, that we can imagine something together and we can already kind of build that path together and then get there. And then the second point, that the echo, I lost it, which is the warm-up of the flow. How did you finish? If you remember, Karen, how did you finish the
About independence.
input?
Maybe, no?
Yes, independent. I'll come back to it later.
I have one for you. How? Because when you start to share, especially start to share about the culture of hip hop and the voice that you gave for youth, especially sharing the pain of the challenge, you know, and the joy as well, the movements, the power, right? But being able to find a channel to communicate with the other parts of society that didn't saw that. They just say like, oh, we have these people invading our lands. They don't remember even the story many times, most of the time. So we went there in their countries, we conquered them, we took there a lot of, you know, the richness that they have, and then we brought them here, and now we have to deal with that, right? And then they don't see the power, the possibilities. There's no dialogue for that. There's no institutional dialogue for that. But then suddenly, once again, the art, other paths, or the game, or you know, the play brought the situation together. The play again connecting all of us. And I see how I would love to have more time for you to describe a little bit more. How does it happen? What kind of impact? What are you noticing from this process? How does it impact people? For example, the French, the born French, whatever other situations there that didn't get it before. So how the young white people are relating? Of course, they love hip hop all over. So how do they see or hear the lyrics? What kind of impact? How they enjoy? Whatever. What are the experiences that you have there that make you more excited? Like, I think for sure the challenge part, what's wrong, what's bad, we know, but what is promising? What from your experience, what's lightning? Oh,
Yes. Thank you so much. It's such a good question. Thank you very much. Because there is like the first thing that it does, right? Like when you have expression, when you have free expression. So if we look at rap or hip hop, and we're gonna just look specifically at France, because it would just help me narrow it down. It first is the first mirror. So it's looking at society and not being able to see yourself. So you're just walking blind in a society that gives you very little space to be. So you're constantly eyes closed. And then finally you hear this sound that is, I know this. And it gives light. So it brings light in obscurity. So first you're in a very dark space, and then there is some light. And the light comes with so much power because it has been restrained. So once the light comes through, it shines very bright. And once this light is there, then we can finally look at ourselves and be like, oh, I'm here, you feel that pain, I feel that pain. So finally we have connection, which means that if you look at people like New French, this is how I call us, we're New French people. And if you look at us, we're so disconnected. We have very little common space. Even if you look at urbanism, the way we are, we're disconnected from the city center. The projects are outside of the city, and there is very little communal space within those projects. So we're disconnected. So now we can have this form of connection through creative expression. And now that we're together in a space, then we have this momentum. Oh, there is a togetherness, there is a belonging, and we can finally exchange. So now we can reflect, we can see ourselves in society, and we can find more and more connections among ourselves. And then if you look at white French people and their adoration, sometimes almost obsession with hip hop or with rap, it is, I mean, there's a lot of perspective on it. I think it's a way of avoiding a very hard topic. So there is a big rock. There is a very hard rock in French society, the one that we don't want to look at. Because if you look specifically at France, it's a country that does not recognize our differences. So there is this notion that everyone is French, which means that on the census, you are not recognized as Black French, Maghrebi French, we're just all French. But French means white. So then there is this enforced whiteness upon everyone. And I guess once we can bring our voice in, if you look at hip hop and rap, then for the young white French people, it was recognizing this nuance. Oh, like there are more people of our generation and they can speak ourselves. But then we like it instantly in order to avoid that conversation about colonialism, in order to avoid the notion of oppression. So you focus on the liberation of oppression, but you don't like talking about the actual oppression. And I think this is where we are now in French society, is there's more and more voices that can come and say, I am French, but from this different perspective, this non-white Frenchness, and I can talk about that oppression and I can talk about my experience, the joy and the pain. But then we still do not talk about where is the pain from, where is the origin of that pain. And that to me is double-edged. I see a lot of pain and tension from it, but equally as I see tension, I see the potential release of it. And to come back to the notion of play and game, I think through fiction probably we can talk about it. We can talk about the origin of pain. And now that we heard so much of us, it gathered us. You know, like when France won the World Cup in '98, there was this sense of ecstasy, extreme form of unity. I was 8 years old, and in the street it was like social class totally were uplifted for a week. You know, like there was no social tension for a second. It was just that unity, that belongingness. We all belong in this. And this was a social project to look at the football, which is again a game. The football team of France '98, it was the most diverse it could have been. And it meant we can all belong together. Can we create that new France together? It might be over romanticized, but we need that form of hope now. And this is what we need. And then we can talk about. But first, we need to like engulf ourselves in those like very warm feelings of like the potential of being together. And only then when we're together can we talk about that tension. So I'm not sure it answered your question, but this is what came out.
So, by the way, you answered my question, but way beyond my question. I was looking for any new that could give me goosebumps. Usually, what I like it, and you did it. Like it's true. Like the ideas of many images that I saw, the clear images of you closing your eyes and saying you were like that, and then with hip hop, like with the sound, listening to sound, we open our eyes. This image is like, thanks God you come from theater. But when you do that, it's clearly like I can tell that we and everyone that's listening, hearing us, could sense that, not just hearing that. It's clear. It's clear. I never saw hip hop in this way. like this opening, this eye opening. I was already in a tool of expressing. I jumped to the next level, but it starts by you hearing it, a sound from somewhere, or watching it from someone moving their bodies, or And so this first gaze, this first not even gaze, the first open eyes, the first light able to come to you is quite important. Especially for me, if I already design a game, I have to take care of this first level, first stage, not just going to okay, let's just play hip hop. There's a whole mediation process. So I love that because it's all connected with our subject here. Is mediation. How can the sound be a mediator, media, for you to open your eyes? How your gaze can be a media for you to connect with something else. And then how being together, understanding that, echoing that, can make us being together and see ourselves and reflecting together about our situation and understanding, revealing new things. I could talk about the same thing about you, Karen, the game itself bringing this possibility. But hip hop is so powerful because hip hop is a tool of mediation. Many people say hip hop is a tool of uh, reaction, a tool of expression, but it's way beyond that. It's all part of it. But when you brought your perception for me was about the situation. I wonder what I would love to. So it was so good, but I wonder if you both have questions to each other, like or how you react to the things that we have been talking here together. Oh.
Oh,
No, please go ahead.
no, I was thinking a lot. First, when Edgar was talking about, I was thinking about this question of how do you maintain the sense of play, kind of after the game is finished. Say like when you begin building an intervention on the square and you have to go buy the materials or get the materials and all of that, and you have to find the hammer, and you can't find the hammer. Kind of that. How do you maintain the sense of play and connection? And I was really touched when AO was speaking, and I was thinking of the thing of the origin of pain and how do you still deal with the side of the origin of pain without denying the hurt that is in it. And I also find it really powerful with hip hop, and I am very fascinated by the ballroom culture from like the Harlem in the 90s, and this thing of how these tools can actually like change the narrative. So there's this documentary, Paris is Burning. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but there's this sentence that this guy says, like the ballroom is where it's actually cool to be gay, and it's actually the most amazing thing to be gay when in the rest of society that's not. So those were things that I was holding. So.
So there are two things here: how to maintain a sense of play. I guess this, like now we're grown-ups talking about this, but I think maybe it would be worth to witness children who can always maintain a sense of play. And it might come from like a lack of judgment or just being in a space that like allows not to play. You know, it's very hard to do something once you're like forcing yourself to do it. I gotta be playful now. I gotta stay playful now. Like this is already something that is like enforced. So I guess maintaining a sense of play would probably be be in a space that enforce it. So playground. Now we can talk again about the space and not only about the action of human, but the space in which they are. And I guess this is the job of you both, like this notion of urbanism and how can space like just stimulate play. So because that intention, I guess the structure of the mind saying I must remain playful is already totally killing that notion of playfulness. So that is the first thing that come to mind. And then not denying the pain. I guess it came as well with that. It came with the same. I'm very focused on space since I know that both of you are architect or in urbanism. But I guess the notion of being in a space that allows it is very key. And as I often find myself as a researcher, you overdo the problematic, right? So when you come in a space and you have a question, you're really digging the question so much, and quite often you realize that the answer is in it. It's just the reverse. You just need to see it from multiple perspectives. So in, you know, like in tension there is release, in pain there is joy, and it's just the notion of building multiple perspective around it in order to recognize it. Because if you just look at it from this side and you're like, this is the pain, this is the pain, then you just need to build those multiple perspective in order to see that it's all part of one. And this again is spatial, right? It's you being in the space. So I would definitely go towards the notion of space, if it makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah, I want to bring back to light your sharing about the World Cup. And for a while, all the nation come together to the street and felt like no barriers, no boundaries. And we are lucky because in Brazil you have once a year, at least once a year, everyone go to the street for the carnival, not for the World Cup. We have many World Cup, but not every year. And actually, we lose to you to France that one uh, terribly. So it was party for you and sadness for us. But anyway, it's important to bring like your last sharing place, right? So of course, in order to play, we need like the stage for theater. We need the soccer field or the gym for sport, like this playfulness or playground. Could be the whole town, the whole city, the square, the central square, right? Sometimes the patio in the school. But you're right, like there are many powerful components. And bring it back this, so why we are here talking about mediation. So the space can be a mediator for what you're looking for. The music, the sound could be a mediator, right? The movements is another mediator to invite is a channel, is a tool for us to connect and to bring back to this the reason, the purpose of mediation, putting us together. The movement is a mediator. The hip hop will bring us together in order to dance or to sing or to hear, celebrate life. And then in the field of celebration, being able to watch together our common pain, our common challenges. Because maybe if you call me to come to neighborhood, let's talk about how we are suffering together in France. But say, no, no, I have too much, cannot deal with that. But creating excuses is important. So think about us and everyone that is listening to us or they're going to listen other time. But myself as well, listening you before them, I'm pretty excited by watching all those things as tools of mediation, not tools of solving, not tools of expression. It's way beyond that. Like seeing the citizens, the French citizens, jumping together, singing together in the street, they are building themselves mediations processes that if you are aware, we can use in different ways, right? What would that be? It's not just romanticizing, right? As I said, no, I'm sure that you know that's not romanticizing, right? Sometimes scientists say like, "Oh, you're seeing the best," but it's actually happening there. We are expressing, we are seeing ourselves, we are sensing togetherness in the fields of play or celebration that we could not allow ourselves to be in other place. And then you can see like, watch that. What does it mean, a reunited France? If you watch our chin, it's not just a symbolic stuff. Like, look that. If we have just white guys, or just black guys, or just Arabic guys, maybe we're not going to win this World Cup. We won this World Cup because of all of that, because of the theater. If you say that, like the stage of soccer, there are the players there, the actors there. Or we say it's a game, they're enjoying life. See how we can be powerful together. How it looks like in our office, how it looks like in our square, how it looks in my co-housing, my building, whatever. How could we translate? And then I see like I mean we are going to entering the third session, the third 20 minutes to think about solutions. Like how do you see like I'm already there. I say not solutions, but how can you use that as tools we're going to next level. What would we do if you were not 18 years old, if you are who you are right now, if you have the possibility of going to TV show live and in sharing what you see about people celebrate, what are the possibilities there? But what would you do like with this channel, this possibility? And how can we use this power in the co-housing challenges? Because we have to be more and more and more close to each other. Cortiços is really radical. So I don't know if the audience know about cortiço in Brazil. It's about sometimes 20 families in one house that originally was for one family, a wealth family. Like so, usually it's cortiços. It's not they are not slums. They are not favelas. They are beautiful houses, old house that wealth people used to live there, and then they left to richest neighborhood because that neighborhood became dilapidated. And then where one family used to live, 20 families live using 3 bedrooms for everything. It's way worse than favelas, the situations. Way more, and people usually they move a lot. Many people move a lot, so because it's cheaper, but it's still not cheaper. It's cheaper than land, but many times it's as expensive as a rent. But because they have no guarantees, they have no papers, they will go to this place. So it's really radical. But how can, through a game, through different challenges, game is one of them, right, Carrie? How can we help those families to reinvent the way of living together? So again, we need to reinvent ways of living together. In France, with different people, different spaces, different rituals, and how can we be tools, facilitators, using those tools, we and everyone interested in that, and supporting community, society to go to this level. So what kind of solutions come to you, solutions or ways or path are you seeing in order to solve or to help to play those challenges?
Mm. I don't have like a direct solution, but what everything you said now just echoed is the work. We're coming back to Brazil. The work of Augusto Boal, who was a theater director from Brazil, and his work Theater of the Oppressed is inspired, or rather like a translation of Paulo Freire's um, work on education toward theater. And one thing that Augusto Boal said that is like fundamental to the ritual of theater is that there is an audience. So we can play together, but it does not happen until someone can see it. So the role of the witness is very key. And now when you were talking about football, when I imagine football, I see the audience. And this is why COVID was like really showing this. To see football without an audience, it was a different kind of game. When you were like, oh, we're playing and we're imagining that togetherness, we're experiencing that togetherness together, which we could not experience outside of those 90 minutes. But here there is no audience. So the role of the witness, I think, is very key, is fundamental to the act of play. And now you asked this very specific question about like if you had the space in a TV program, like what would you do? Now, one thing that just came naturally is witness. Some like just someone that is here and that can just say, yes, I see this. You know, like just the fact that you brought this story about people who live 20 families living in a house that has been designed to host one, just witnessing this, and this is not feeding the witness only, it is totally validating the experience of those families. Someone knows, someone else knows, and does, just beyond the judgment, just the pure witness of, I can see. That's the first thing that comes to mind.
I'll continue to add to this of the TV show, because what first came up to my mind was this thing um, of how you talked about a stage, and that actually to share that stage, um, and that's also something that I think is very powerful with Theater of the Oppressed, of wow, that is at any moment you can jump in and um, become a part of the play and step into the role of a character that resonates with your experience and act on it. And I think that this part of, directly relating is also in this witness role, in the sense of like when you're watching a soccer match, you cheer, and like you know that what you're feeling, like that you're screaming go go go, won't like actually make them score a point, but you actually somehow feel that like cheering that hard will somehow affect the result. um, so there is this invitation, and I think that that's really important, to give this invitation for people to step in and for people to position themselves. And then I also wanted to add this about cortiços, that is also something really crazy to think about, that in a cortiço, because you have like this 20 families living in one house, it is like the only affordable option for them to live in the city center. But at the same time, it's one of the most profitable forms of like land investment, because they get like money from so many people in so many small spaces. um, and that usually doesn't revert back to the people. So like the owners don't usually invest it into like building improvements in the house. um, so yeah, there is this maybe lack of a stage in a sense. um,
Hmm. Hmm. I'm quite excited with many points of our sharing together here, and, and especially there's so many things that I would love to explore further. But now I'm keeping myself in the sense of mediation. We, as mediators, are experts on researching, sharing, playing mediation processes. What's the role of mediation, especially with land conflict, for example? This main topic of this event, right? And I try to take tools or take possibilities or inventing from what you're sharing. And I wonder again, like, what can I learn in order to use those moments in a hip hop circle or in a soccer celebration or soccer field supporters, a TV show, but all those things, using all those things, events as tools, and extracting knowledge from these possibilities, because doesn't work if we have a tool and not knowing what to do, right? With that, that's why the provocation of a TV show. If you could have a TV show now, how you use your voice to express what's going on there. Hey guys, are you seeing? We are all celebrating the streets. You see the possibilities. So we need some voicing or some song, some hip hop song, singing that in order to mean that, meaning and expressing and so it's not just about expressing your pain. It's not about screaming. But when you hear hip hop songs, you can scream your pain, and then people are gonna say, so, are gonna hug you, or someone gonna, okay, I have my own pain. It's up to you. The hip hop song, you can stay for hours listening and listening again and listen again, and you can express way more than just ah. You can detail. How does it mean your family come from outside? What are the gaze that you give me every day in the streets? Things that can awaken other eyes, like opening other eyes through the sound. So I wonder that, like, how can I use of this conversation, all those possibilities to go to the next level? Seeing, yeah. So those guys are already, and girls, they are already doing the first topic. The hip hop is a tool to opening eyes from the heart. Right? Starting something, right? Go within. Speeches cannot, not all speeches. Of course, Martin Luther King can do that, but cannot like raise the speech like times and times and times and times and times. The song is that. Music can do that. You're gonna hear that on the street if you want, if you cannot, right? So they are doing this stuff. But what can we, as agents of mediation, using helping them with the next steps? Otherwise, because we know art, music, television, soccer are all commercialized, and then you go to radio, you just hear the song and you move, and maybe the powerful speech are not being used anymore, right? They make money out of that, commercialize, capitalize that, then lose that. How can we bring it back in the full potential to really make change, or at least the next level? So we are celebrating together. The word, so the soccer players, they did a miracle, amazing miracle, right? They put we all friends together, soccer as a tool, and World Cup as a tool, and that those players as together they make this miracle happen. We are all celebrating for the whole week in the street. How can we use this mediation process maybe to go to the next level? That's what I'm bringing. More not exactly an answer, but a question to myself as we have those moments to explore what are the possible solutions. What about you guys?
Now I'm wide open now. So I have two things. There are two sources. What Karen said, what Edgar said. I would first come back to what you were saying just now. If we look at hip hop and kind of deconstruct its structure and its impact on society, then you can translate it to other form of mediation. So if we look at hip hop as like mediation, and you can look at the beats, like as you were saying, you can have a speech of a public speaker, you're a public speaker, let alone like politician or not. You're a public speaker and you give your speech, like you were saying with Martin Luther King, but that speech, you're not going to hear it 100 times. I can hear one of my favorite track over 100 times. So there is a beat to it. It's an earworm. There's like the message is delivered with space, with grace. So it makes you like listen to it more, and then you can accept it more. So the space is inviting. There is beauty. And then if you look at sample, I think sample is very key for us to translate it into other form of mediation, reusing archive, reusing all the sound, reusing what people done before, and then bringing it back to the current. When France Fanon talks about that notion of each generation has to find from obscurity its own light and then carry it forward, is this like intergenerational, like we're not doing anything new. So we must recognize what has been done before and reconnect it to the current. And then it gives you so much more grace. So if you hear like a hip hop track that is done now, but then it has sample from soul from the 60s, like this combination, that's what makes it strong. That's what makes you listen to the same speech over and over again. So if we look at like hip hop artists that are like the new public speakers or the new philosophers, they have many ways, many tricks, many tools, many extraordinary ideas to make that experience more translatable. So I think within this, there is a lot of things to dig as a mediator: sample, beat, that notion of new gospel, the notion of rhythm being a language. How can we find like that rhythm to mediate? So again, in play, rhythm is very important. How do we get to that space? And then another, like it seems disconnected, but I think it is very much connected. When Karen echoed back the work of Augusto Boal, the notion of like the audience can act, then it interacts. Like you can come in and interact. And this echoes the work of a Turkish cinematographer that I'm very keen on. Her name is Pelin Esmer. She does tremendous work, and she has this movie that is called The Play, where she goes to a small town and she asks women to reenact their experience of womanhood within the village, and they are reenacting themselves, reenacting their own story of oppression. And this is quite close, I think, to the more popular work of Oppenheimer, The Act of Killing, like acting those perpetrators to reenact the oppression. But the idea of like reenacting something, reenacting your own story, and then interacting with it. So having this reenactment and then allowing the audience to jump in and then be able to interact with it. I think here that open door policy can create a lot of positivity. I think that's what mediation could be, that you have that first act and then you include the witness to participate in it. So those are the two disconnected that we can find the connection to.
Amazing. Karen.
Yeah, in this question of like, how do you bring it to the next level, say it, and this threat of, becoming anti or commercialized, like I really thought about this space of reflection, of thinking like, why does something move you? Like, what is this deeper level on why this experience is important? Why this experience like triggers and opens something, releases something. Like in the case of like a soccer match, and you get emotional, like maybe it's because of a memory of your childhood and it makes you remember your dad, um, or because it is representation and you're finally seeing someone who looks like you having a stage, or because it reminds you of your amazing self when you were 7 and you were really good at soccer. um, so I'm thinking of like um, joining play with also this reflection moment of really acknowledging what came up, what is important that came up, what is actually moving, and what is moving for other people. So like again, coming back to your cup, to Ayo's cup image that I found really beautiful of all of the sides.
Mm. Oh gosh. Okay. We have our last 7 minutes to explore possibilities. See, both. It's basically 7 minutes to talk about future actions, commitments, wishes. Think, okay, if if this conversation. So as Juanita Brown was the creator of the word cafe. I don't know if you ever played the word cafe technique. You should research ours. You'd love it. And she'd say every time that we meet, she says, Edgard, or she says to maybe for everyone, if there was a higher reason for us to be here together today, what would that be? Sometimes we have a subject, we have a about that we know. Oh, okay, let's talk because we have this project. But before we start talking about the project, say like, if there was a higher reason for us to be here together today, what would that be? And then our souls knows. We discuss that. Like, oh, and then suddenly say like, oh, you have the answer when someone raises a question. So I want to play with that. So the people from the event, they say like, oh, let's have 10 minutes to talk about next steps. What do I want to commit with? What are the connections that you can with each other? And sometimes I say like, I give like 2 steps back because see, I'm doing so many things. I'm not like busy. But they say like, it doesn't matter. It's not a commitment among us. What after this conversation? What are you up to commit yourself? What you want to bring to your own network? What next steps do you wish to bring from this conversation? So I wonder, what are yours? I can take that because I have some. I can start with myself. I'm pretty excited this idea, more wide, my open idea of seeing all of that as tools. The World Cup celebration on see it as a tool. You know, soccer field full of supporters. As a tool, right? A mediation tool. It's always a tool, right? A mediation tool. Hip hop as a mediation tool, as you designed, described so well at the beginning, because it's a tool for you. Opening eyes was so important. Thanks God you come from theater because you did it yourself. It was powerful for us. For me, it was really powerful. So I'm going to a next level. Basically, I'm raising the bar. So I use the game as a tool, right? But it's almost as I was using the card game as a tool, not the game itself, right? You can go for the card games that do, oh, hip hop, the soccer field. No, 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 no. There's something else. That's the next level of the game. So what happened? When they are actually playing? Use the card. When the card game allows them to play something else, when Boao invites them to play something else, something reveals. So it's not the playground. So it's not the stage. It's the play itself, the characters. So how can we use the play, not the theater, not the stage, not as a mediation game. It's what I am, and I'm totally excited to bring it to my network. I'm committed to that. This question, how can we use that in this way? So
Now, definitely the notion of, like, we talked about different games and the notion of play. Now, as you said, like that higher form, not higher as in more valued, but just as the wider one. Like that's the one that I'm now excited to dig further and probably reconnect again with the notion. Like I always come back to the notion that the collective can manifest the possible, but now through that conversation, it's always like reasserted, like, yes, the collective can manifest new possible, because we didn't talk about games that we can play alone. Like the play is done with multiplicity. So now each time I grow, like through time, I always re-engage more and more with the notion of the collective. So now this is one thing that I want to go in this direction, and I want to engage with my friends, with fellow researchers and fellow thinkers more about that notion that the collective can manifest new possible. And as Karen, your last words were on that notion of being reflective, like having a play was like a reflective moment, like, oh, why did that speak to me, why did that echo? So this is something I'm going to pack with me as well, like always adding that reflective moment in any form of mediation or any form of play, just to reconnect basically. Like now I'm having that play, I'm having that moment, but reflect back on you and be like, oh, how does that connect? And through those connectors, then we can move together.
I find it really challenging to like say a commitment, but at the same time, like hearing both of you, like this commitment seems also a lot like this change in perspective that we talked about a lot. So I'm thinking of trying actually to see in the lesser playful things that I do, like writing back an email, where is the playfulness and where is like this trying to find this place of connecting in the things that I usually take the route of not connecting and shutting my brain off. And yes, there's always this thing of, those tools are just so powerful, like the card game, the structure of a game, the stage, the soccer field. So I'm always like on the lookout for them. I have my notebook that I keep on writing, like the new games I discover and like how I can change them and all of that. But just seeing also how it works without the practical tool. Yeah, and I really want to thank this.
Oh, you're muted.
You're muted.
oh my gosh, I said like we are so good. We finished exactly. We ended up exactly on time, 12 p.m. Right. So I want to thank you amazingly. It was quite way more excited or inspired than I imagined. My head is like, thanks God that. But I want to thank you all the organizers. I think they got what they want, like make us like our minds tackling and bringing things back. I'm even willing to commit more things about bringing it more into life. So thanks so much. It was so inspiring, so inspiring. And I really want from you, oh, what's the Turkish name, the director name from the film you
Yes,
play? Could you type it down? Go
it's
for
called
us and
The
for everyone.
Play. So it's called The Play, and it is a documentary made by Pelin Esmer, and the original title is Oyun, Oyun.
Could you type it down? You type it down in
Yes.
yeah, so everyone that's listening can come to afterwards.
Oh.
Amazing. So you're good. So I can assume that we are ending up, and you're supposed to do like the bye bye to everyone.
Thank you very much.
and hope to see you next time. Bye bye.
Yes. Take good care, everyone.
You too.
Bye.
I'm gonna take notes of your director.
Likewise.
Incredible. I wanna see this movie right now.
You must take time.
Yeah.
No, I want to rewatch our conversation and then go like writing down.
And write notes. This is the plan I had. I need to get back to this.
So organizers,
Thank you so much.
the invisible people behind it. Are you ready to come back? And are we free?
As
Yeah,
Gabby.
I think we are still live though.
Yeah, we are, and
Yes,
people
we
enjoy
are.
it. You know,
Yeah,
when you have
right?
this,
Like poof,
when-
the
yeah, we
release,
have the movie.
that
we
post
have the-
play.
they must be watching, saying, "Oh, they are ordinary people. They don't bother. They laugh."
We're going to
Well,
cook lunch after this.
Yeah, of course, they're cooking right in front of me. So, but they're not here. Maybe they are busy with the other panels. I don't know. Okay,
No, hi. Yeah, I'm one of the invisible organizers. Like, I usually don't jump in after the conversations. So, but I thank you so much for the amazing conversation. Like, I also learned a lot from listening to you in the backstage.
Oh, you're
thank
here
you
all
so.
the time.
I was here all the time.
Nice.
So I'm just jumping in the stage, as you were saying. But really, thank you so much for such a meaningful conversation and so heartful. It has been a pleasure to listen to you all. So yeah, like then I can do like a group email between you. So if you wish to stay
That'd be great.
connected, yeah.
Please do so.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you
Enjoy
so
your
much.
food.
I let you go. Bye bye, everybody.
Bye bye, everyone.
Have a lovely
Bye-bye.
rest of the day. Ciao, ciao.
Pleasure.
You too.